All right, good afternoon. I think I'm on. I'm not sure. I am live. Good afternoon, everyone. Wasn't quite sure there I was live. But this is my monthly call for you guys, or a video call rather. Hope everyone's doing well. Hope the year's off to a good start. Hard to believe it's the middle of February. It's kind of mind blowing, and I know it feels kind of like Groundhog Day as we're waiting for the vaccine, waiting for life to get back to normal again. But I hope everyone's off to a really good start for the year. I know it's been busy on my end. Got a lot of initiatives going this year, so I hope everybody's kind of pumped, getting ready to go for the year, and hoping that everybody has a kick-ass year, and I'm here to help you do that. So we're going to get into the questions today, and we'll go right through it. Got some good ones. And just a quick refresher, if you don't know who I am, I'm Ryan Payne. I run a wealth management firm here out in New York City. I have offices in Philadelphia as well. And I can answer anything that has to do with investing, financial planning, business building. I built my business from the ground up. I'm still running my business. So anything in that realm, I'm happy to answer for you. I do these every single month. So don't be shy. Put some questions out there, and I'm happy to answer them. So having said that, why don't we get to the questions, and let's look at what's on your mind. Okay, so the first one comes in from Roland Bernath. He asks, do I go separate ways and build my own, or is it always this hard to work with family? That's not a good start. Let's get a little background here. So in our family company, my father is the owner, and I'm supposed to take over the company in a few years. I came to work for him a year ago. On the side, I have an import-export business, revenue about $500 US, that I believe has potential. Recently, I'm realizing he has been very abusive emotionally all my life, but I'm just starting to realize this. I came home to work with/him, but he looks at me as another worker, not respecting my qualities of speaking several languages, having experience in management. He wants to make me do physical work and then tells me I'm lazy when I tell him that that's not what I'm here for. Long term, I see a big potential in our family business, building up logistics, e-commerce, etc. But right now, we are just fighting because he is trying to micromanage everything, me as well. Many times I'm feeling I'm wasting my time and potential here. My mental energy is draining, but I'm the oldest son in the family and was pretty much programmed that is my responsibility to take over the company. I do feel emotionally attached, but I feel like I'm destined for bigger things in life. Okay, this is pretty heavy, and I appreciate you sharing all this because I know you asked a question like this, very similar a couple of months ago, same thing. You're working with your dad. The idea was you're supposed to come in, more along the lines of being strategic and doing things on the operation side of running the business. I remember this, and it sounds like you're just like basically there to do what you're told, essentially do manual labor and things that you didn't really envision yourself doing. So the one thing I'd recommended last time, I'm not sure if you had this conversation, was to maybe renegotiate with your dad as you were starting again. I do work with my father. We actually started this business, Payne Capital Management, together. So, there were rules up front. It was kind of like, hey, look, we're starting this together. We're partners, and everything pretty much has grown from that, right? We already had that basic premise in place when we started our business. So again, if you haven't done that, I think the first thing you want to do is renegotiate. Just lay it out there like, hey, look, I'd like to work here, but we got to put some rules in place and put it in writing. This is a business relationship. It's not just a family relationship. And, then you have something you can fall back on. Because again, it's kind of like, okay, I'm in the family business, but we talked about my role was going to be this. Here, I have it in writing, and now you're telling me I need to move those boxes over there. So I think, having some kind of firm grip on like what your responsibilities should be is critical here. And if you haven't done that, I recommend that's something you should probably do first. Now, if you've done that, it sounds like your dad is just a micromanager. That's the way he's always run his business. That's always the way he's going to do it. Then that could be a systemic problem forever. And this is very, very common with business owners. They can be micromanagers. And a lot of times, and we all struggle with this too. I think, one of the reasons my business was able to grow to another level from where it started initially is because I was able to start to relinquish control. Because that's a big thing. The hard thing is the bigger that you become as a business, the less control you're going to have, the more reliant you have to be on other people. But if you never embrace that, and there's people who run their businesses for 40, 50, 60 years, and it never grows past how they initially started the business because they never wanted to relinquish control on anything. That's fine, but you're never going to grow. Now, your dad presumably has been running this business for a long time. He's got a certain way to do it, and it sounds like, he's not exactly the easiest guy to get along with, just based on your writings here. So, yeah, I think at this point, it looks like you have a lot of skill sets. You speak different languages. You have an entrepreneurial flair, and maybe that's the right move here, is if this isn't working out the way that you want it to. Now, the other thing is you could always come back. If you go out and you do start your own business or your import-export business, you start to really try to build that up and prove yourself on your own, then maybe that's a better position to come back later. At least use it as a negotiating tool to be like, look, I love you. I'm the oldest child, and I do want to help out with this business. I want to be a part of it, but this doesn't work with the way things are going. So, I want to start working on my business over here, and maybe at some point in the future we can come back and we can meet somewhere in the middle. And potentially that could be a negotiating tactic to say like, okay, or we could sit down, we can come to the table here, and we can renegotiate what my role looks like within the business. So I think they're your two options. And, personally, I have an entrepreneurial, passion. I think everybody in this group does. So if that's not being fed, with this business, then I think maybe you should try it on your own. Maybe, go out there and prove to yourself that you can build something up from the ground up, and not to say later you can't come back and join the family business or be like, hey, look how successful I've been over here. Let's deploy some of the strategies I've learned and let's apply it to the business over here. And that's happened a lot. Like I actually, recently I was hanging out with a friend who worked with his mother, and his mother was the same way, micromanager. He had all these ideas about how the business was going to work. She just could not relinquish control. So he finally said he was out. He literally put a resignation letter in and said he's out of there. And then catastrophe hit and their whole warehouse went on fire. And all of a sudden the mother was just like completely in a bind here with the business. And she was also having health problems at the time. And at this point, like, it was his mother. He couldn't leave the business because she was in terrible shape physically, and the business at this point was in tatters. So he basically came back in, said, look, worry about the renegotiating later, me leaving. Let me just help you right the ship here. And he went in there and fixed everything, and now the business is literally going to be sold for $15 million because he was able to do what he wanted to do. But because it would never have happened if it wasn't for that catastrophe, and he actually put his line in the sand to say, I'm out of here. If things don't change. So it sounds to me like my gut is that's probably where you're going to have to go with this. You're going to have to just be like, hey, look, here's my notice. I'll help you to this time, but I'm doing my own thing. And then maybe at some point in the future, you can revisit it. But I think at this point, you may have to take more extreme measures. Okay, so that's what I have to say about that. If you have any comments or questions about that, just hit me up in the comment section of this video, and I'm happy to answer that. And if you want to go into a little more in depth, I can even maybe have him talk to my buddy who went through something very, very similar. And again, it turned out to be a success story at the end. Next question comes in from Heather Brockman. Heather writes in, is there an average training period I should be working towards with my new hires? Okay, so let's give a little background here. Heather, we currently have our on-the-job training set at 80 hours to cover all aspects of the company, the processes, the vehicles, and this is all followed by a test to make sure they understand and can implement everything. It is a paid training course, but for groomers who are used to making commission is a drastic change, $100 a day for paid training. This may cost me a new hire. I'm now wondering, do I keep the training thorough and mandatory 80 hours, 80 hours so it is the same across the board, or do we tweak it for each person? And a little bit of an elevator pitch here. We offer high-end holistic grooming experiences for busy pet owners who animals are part of the family. This is a good question because it sounds like your whole process it's a pretty 80 hours. Okay, so you're talking about like 2 weeks of someone's time. And to your point, they may not be able to make the money that they're typically making it because they're literally doing this training course. Yeah, maybe that's what you have to do. Maybe you have to do a more customized version, especially if someone who's really good. Maybe they don't need all the training. That could be on a case-by-case basis. I'd wonder, too, Heather, how big is your business? How many people are you talking about training at a time? Because if it's a small business, you could probably be a little more customized in that training, and you could determine what training people need, or maybe it's like training on the job. They do the training while they're also earning money. That way it doesn't hurt them over that 2-week period where they're earning less, apparently, at that $100 a day for training. So that is definitely a big deal, because that's 2 weeks, economically speaking, if it's significantly less what they normally make. The way I used to do it, now we do have a training process, but people are salaried, so they are making their money as they're getting trained. But back in the day, it was just kind of like learn as you go. And I think it sounds like here you have processes that are probably a little more sophisticated than the processes that we had in initially. But I think a hybrid model here may make sense, because you probably have some smart, talented people that may not need the whole 80 hours of training. So maybe you could set it up where, to your point, you just customize it for each person. I think your gut's probably right on that, especially if you're trying to attract people that are very good. It's a transient business. It's hard to keep people if it's competitive, and it sounds like it probably is if you're actually writing me this, because you have this issue. So I think unless it's like a scale issue, because if you're training like 50, 100 people at a time and you want to customize it for all those people, that doesn't work. So maybe, if it's like smaller, it's just a handful of people, and they're people that are going to be around for a long time. If you retain them and you don't lose them over that 2-week period, then yeah, maybe more of a hybrid model makes sense. Intuitively, it sounds like that's what I would do for that. But again, if there's like other issues in here, other intricacies that we're not talking about here, you can just put a message in the video section. We can talk about it. But I think your gut feeling is right on that. Okay, next question comes in from Allison Koyanaji. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. And Allison writes in, how do you feel with employees lying to you? Ooh, that's a good question. Business description and background. It's another question. My other one wasn't answered yet, but hope this is okay. Alice Koyanji, Digital Market Agency. Yesterday, I found out that someone that works for me has been lying about the work she's been doing and using company time to do other work that has nothing to do with the tasks I assigned her. She also went against the confidentiality agreement she signed by using techniques and strategies I taught her for our agency's work for other work she's been doing and lying about. Wondering how you've dealt with situations like this before and how I should approach this situation. Thank you for your time and expertise. My gut here is I'd get rid of them right away. I think when lying and dishonesty is something that's in your culture, or somebody is actually bringing that to your culture, and I thought about this because I had an issue like that with an employee back in the day where they would do white lies. It wasn't like a big deal. This sounds even more egregious, where they're actually doing work for other people. I don't know. I think from my perspective, I would not keep that person around. If your business is small and everyone counts and everyone's integrity and the way everyone feels and does business, it impacts everybody else. So odds are, if she's lying and she's doing things that aren't above board, I bet you're not the only one who knows that. If it's a small business, there's no secrets. Everybody knows everything. And the reality of it is, everyone's important to morale. I mean, even, to the point where we had an open office pre-pandemic. I'm not sure what we're going to do post-pandemic. The open architecture, that type of office where everybody's out in the open, right? It's been a great idea until the pandemic hit. And it's like, oh, maybe we should seclude ourselves back in boxes like we used to do, which I'm thinking about going back to again. I think this new age stuff, I'm over it. I'm over it. But my point is, when someone would come in every day and they weren't feeling good, and you have an office of only 10 people and we're all in the open, we can see everyone's emotions all day hung on their sleeve. If someone was in a bad mood every single day or often, it would ruin the mood for the entire office. Okay? So point being, any behavior that any of your employees is showing, any behavior that they have is definitely influencing everybody else in the organization. And if you don't do anything to reprimand or get rid of this person who basically isn't doing a good job or doing things dishonestly, the message you're sending is, well, anybody can do that. It's okay. There's no consequences. The one thing you could do, it sounds like there's a couple egregious things that have been done here. And this, in my mind, would be maybe a decision just to not even give them a second chance. Or maybe you give them, that would be option 2. Now we're talking about it, is maybe give them an ultimatum, because let them know you're aware of what they've been doing. and let them be aware that you know that they lied, and if they do it again, it's a fireable offense. Maybe in all fairness, they don't know what they're doing is dishonest, which sounds like that's not the case based on the way this has been written. But you could give them an ultimatum, let them know it's fireable offense next time they do it. But it does sound like here it's been a bit more egregious than that. I've had situations where employees maybe push the boundaries on things. They did things not exactly how I wanted them to do it. I didn't explicitly say it, but it was understood that I didn't want them to do certain things, but they did it anyway. In this case, I shut down things people were doing because it was literally what I asked them not to do. And basically let the message be known that, no, these are the rules of engagement. If you touch the electric fence, you will get shocked. So maybe put that parameter in place and give them another chance. If you really feel like it's something where, it could be righted the wrong, they could actually come to a conclusion that, hey, what I did was wrong here. It's not cool. And I could be fired for it. But if you don't feel like that's the case, I would get rid of that person. It's definitely something that's, for your organization, it's a big issue and it's a big problem. And you really need, especially if you're in a small organization, you need everybody to have the same moral values, everyone to be on the same page on some level when it comes to what's right and wrong. So that's my 2 cents on that. Hopefully that's a direct answer for you, which it looks like you were looking for. Okay, so now we have Lindsay Lennon. I think I pronounced your last name correctly. Lindsay writes in, how do you settle a dispute over 2 employees that don't like each other? Make them sit next to each other every single day. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so business description and background. I own a chocolate business. That sounds awesome. However, my dispute is with an employee where I work. I've already gone to my manager and nothing has really been done. I want to know what the most professional way to approach the situation. I sell chocolates with ingredients collected from direct trade farms in sustainable sourced package. Okay, so this sounds like this is out. I think it's outside your chocolate business, because you're saying here that your dispute is with an employee where you work. I've already gone to my manager and nothing has really been done. I probably need a little more in the way of details here. If it's, I don't know if it's I'm a little confused if it's 2 people in your business or you're the one having a dispute with the other person. But let's just say for illustration purposes, so we can all learn something from this, let's say it's 2 people in the organization that aren't getting along. I think you need to address that, where you need to actually sit the 2 people down together and have them air out their grievances and try to come to some sort of reconciliation. Because again, I think this really comes down to, I'm assuming again, your business is small enough where everyone has to play nice in the sandbox. And if these things don't get hashed out, that's a real problem. And I think being a mediator here is pretty critical. If the one employee, let's just say, is the problem, and maybe they're a problem in the organization in general, then I would look to address that one person, and I would find out from everybody confidentially, with confidentiality, basically, are they a disturbance to everybody, right? So I think you got to find out too, is it one person, is it both people? And a lot of times the best way to do that is meet with each person individually first. Okay, get both their sides of the story. And then from there, you can have them meet together with you. Potentially, you can talk to other employees individually and find out what their take is on the situation, so you can find out a little bit better what's going on. We had a situation where there was an issue between an intern and an employee, and the intern didn't really like the way they were being treated by the employee, and we basically had to meet with them separately. We had to get a real feel for what the situation was, and we had 2 different stories, of course, right? You're not going to get the same story from both parties were the victim in this situation, and we ended up letting the intern go because it was just too disruptive. And again, it was like he said, she said in the situation. So I think the first thing you need to do is, and also you need to document this thing from an HR perspective. This is really important. You have to ask each person, hey, you okay when we sat down? This is what we agreed upon. Do you want other action to be taken here? And then send them an email afterwards, basically with what you spoke about, reinforcing the fact that like, hey, this is what we agreed upon. Is that correct? Please respond to this email. Do that, put it on file. And then if you have an HR person, let them be aware of what's going on. If you're the default HR person, save that documentation, put it somewhere where it's always there, and make sure that you have both, agreement from both parties that what you discussed and the solution was agreeable to both. That's really important. And nowadays, more than ever, these employee situations are very, very sensitive. So you really got to document that. And if you have an HR person, make sure they're in the loop on everything and everything is documented. And that solution has been agreed upon, again, by both parties. Can't stress it enough. Okay, cool. I hope that answers your question. Again, I'm not quite sure, Lindsay, if it was your situation specifically or employees in your business. And again, if you want me to get a little more clear, or you want to get a little more clear, just put like a message down in the video section. And I can answer it there for you. Okay, cool. Next question comes in from Jake Carlisle. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. How do I make big time connections without feeling insecure? It's a good question. Business and background. I feel like I would not belong with the big boys, at least not yet, because I haven't done much. I feel like they wouldn't take me seriously. And he put real estate. Well, I mean, I'm not sure when you say big boys, is this talking about actual potential clients that you could be working with in the real estate industry? If I understand this correctly, I think that's probably what you're saying here. I think, well, there's a couple things here. So let's break this down. I'll try to answer it as best I can based on the way the question was asked. So first off, if you're newer in business and any of you who are starting out, I think there's an old saying, act as if, okay? And it's kind of cliche. We've heard it a lot before. It's just like, act like the person that you want to be. And I think there is some truth to that. Fake it till you make it's probably another way of saying that, right? It's like you want to kind of like pretend, when I say pretend, but you want to start to act like this person that you want to be. And then by effect, eventually, subconsciously, your physicality starts to become this person that you want to be. And I think there's some accuracy to that. But the reality of it is, look, we always feel some sort of insecurity. And I've talked about this before. Like, no matter what rung on the ladder you are, there's always somebody higher. There's always somebody making more money. There's always someone who's doing it better than you're doing it, right? It's almost a futile game to play at the end of the day to be like, I'm going to be number one. Because once you get up to what you think number one is, you look up again, and somebody else is number one at a much higher level than you are. Such is life. So I think the first thing to feel good about maybe is the fact that we never, ever get over that. Like I've talked about my business, like we're about $1 billion and I manage now. I feel like, wow, I dreamed when I was younger that'd be such a big number to hit. I remember when I had like 50 million under management, and I thought if I get to 100 million, then I would be a boss, right? Like I would be one of the quote unquote big boys. Then you get to $100 million under management assets, and you're like, oh, you see all these people that got a quarter of, what did I say, 100 million, 2 million? Yeah, a quarter of $1 billion under management. Got to work on my math skills today. Oh man, I'm such a small piker here, and these people are like, way ahead of me. Then you get to a quarter of $1 billion in management. Then you see people that have a $500 million under management. And you're like, man, oh man. You get where I'm going with this. So I know tons of firms now that have several $1 billion under management. I'm like, what am I doing with my life? So point is, you'll always have a little bit of that no matter where you're at. Like we're all kind of faking it till we make it, even when we quote unquote make it. So I think what you just have to do is get out of your comfort zone. Whether that's congregating where some of these clients are or some of these associates are, and being around those kind of people, and it will feel weird at first. You're not going to understand a lot of the conversation. You're not going to feel like you're in the wavelength. You're on that wavelength with those people as well. Like I'll give an example. For me, I just joined YPO, Young Presidents Organization. And the minimum revenue has to be like 10 million plus. It's a big step up for me from some of the other entrepreneurial organizations I was in earlier in my career. And some of these business owners, they're like my age, and they're doing like $20, $30 million a year in revenue. And it's kind of like, wow. And sometimes we have meetings together and we hang out. And sometimes they're just talking about things that are just way more sophisticated than I'm doing in my own business. But I can tell you, I've been in this organization now for over a year. You slowly get acclimated to what they're talking about. You slowly understand better how their businesses run. And you would think, maybe I'm starting to apply some of those things to my own business. And because I'm hanging out with this, higher level business owner per se, I'm picking up new habits and I'm becoming the kind of person that they are when it comes from a business perspective, socially, all those things, and even some social things, right? You pick up social cues, things that you didn't know before because you're hanging with people that are at a level that you want to be at. So I just say jump in head first, man. You're not gonna make mistakes. You're not gonna feel comfortable in some of these situations, but at the end of the day, that's how you're gonna learn. You're gonna get acclimated. That's human nature. We eventually get acclimated to any situation, right? I mean, we can all get used to that next level of success, just like we can get used to a low level of success. It's no different. But I think I urge you to push yourself to always be pushing ahead into new realms you've never been in before, because that's gonna keep you sharp. And you want to have a little bit of those butterflies in your stomach and uncomfortableness when you're doing things, because that means you're actually learning and you're actually forcing yourself to be sharp as of being complacent and being in a certain social circle or business circle or the kind of people you want to work with. You just have to get acclimated to it. And remember, it's a process. An example of this too is I don't do this much anymore, but I used to play in a lot of bands and play guitar. And what would blow my mind is I'd be working on playing a song and I just my fingers, they just couldn't get the coordination down, because a lot of learning guitar or any kind of musical instrument, you can relate to this, is coordination between your brain and your fingers, right? It's getting everything to kind of work in concert with each other. And I would sit there for 2-3 hours. I just couldn't get the combination down, whatever it was. I'd go to bed that night and no bullshit. Next morning, wake up and I could play it perfectly. And why is that? And the reason that is because our mind works on these problems subconsciously. I think half the battles, you just got to expose yourself to new experiences that are weird, they're uncomfortable, you don't quite get it, but your mind, while you're asleep and while you're doing other things, starts to work on the problem. We're just genetically hardwired to do those kind of things. So kind of coming full circle again, that's what you want to do. You want to go with the quote unquote big boys, hang out with the big boys. It doesn't matter, right? We're all putting on our socks one at a time, our pant legs, I think it's pants on one at a time, I think that's the proper term, one at a time. Go out there and do it. It's going to feel weird, uncomfortable, but you're going to get yourself acclimated to it. And just because you're out there having the guts or balls, we'll say, to do that, it's going to eventually elevate you and you're going to be at that level with the other big boys. So hopefully that's helpful. It's a little esoteric, but I think you understand my point there. Okay, cool. We're moving to group. We got a lot of questions today. My God. All right, we got another question here from Mark McDowell. He writes in, how important are business cards today, and what things should I be sure to include? And is design that important? Okay, this is a good question. Description here. I'm looking to update my business card. Currently, I have a template type card. I like it, but I want something different. Are business cards really important of a tool as they used to be? What kind of things can I include on the card to really make them stand out? And is the investment worth it? Elevator pitch, commercial and personal insurance. Focus is mostly on small to medium-sized businesses. I think you want a card that just lights up when you press a button and then lasers shoot out. Bad joke. I don't think the business card is important anymore. I think it's passé. And with COVID, and less touch and all those things, which who knows how quickly that's going to come back, I think those days are over. I wouldn't worry about your business card. What I would care about is, what do your social media platforms look like? That's our new calling card. It's not necessarily, what a card, but what do we do when we meet someone new? It's going to be a business, whatever it's social. We want to look them up on social media, hands down. So for you got to have your LinkedIn tightened up. That's the other thing too, is I would go out of my way, because I used to use this trick back in the day, because I always learned in sales, don't give them your card, get their card and say you're going to follow up, right? Because you don't want to put it in the prospective client's potential opportunities' hands to follow up with you. So I literally used to say, oh, I forgot my business card, but let me take yours. I'll follow up with you, okay? That's the new way of doing that. The new school way of doing that is to be look them up on LinkedIn, connect with them on, actually and I think you even I don't even go Instagram. That might be a little too personal, right away. I'm not quite sure, but at least connect with them on LinkedIn. Make sure your LinkedIn looks sharp. And this is one of the reasons why you want to start to create some content too, which is probably a larger discussion. Because if you're actually creating content, people can kind of see like your thought leadership and whatever you're doing. Anything that's going on in the insurance industry that you're an expert of and you're top of mind because you're always up in their feed. Like that's huge. So I think, specifically LinkedIn, you can do it professionally. There's nothing unprofessional with meeting someone and connecting with them on LinkedIn, but that's your calling card now. It's really not a business card anymore because, what do you do with that business card? You throw it to the side, you forget about it. But go ahead and be aggressive. Connect on LinkedIn, send them a little note, and then start to build up a feed of things that are sent out so you're top of mind with people. It happens to me all the time. People hit me up like, Ryan, we need financial help. Can I talk to one of your advisors? And I know they've been watching my videos every week. I've been in their feed all the time. And I think that is just such a powerful thing to do nowadays. And that's the new school. And it just depends. It depends on your business. Some people, it's connecting through Facebook. Maybe it's Instagram. Figure out your medium and figure out where you're connecting with people, but make sure you're getting connected on the social media 100%. That's your calling card of the modern day. So it was a joke about the lasers. Don't do it with your business card. It's going to be a big expense and you're going to be pissed off at me later. Okay, cool. Let's keep moving and grooving. One more question coming in from Yolinda de Govia. I'm sorry, Yolinda. I'm totally bashing that last name. The question here is, best way to raise capital during the early stages of a business. Okay, so description here. We produce and sell decorative pillow covers. We want to expand by manufacturing pillow inserts. We resell inserts at the moment, and it's about 50% of our monthly income. Making these ourselves will drive our costs down to a 1/3 of current costs, save on shipping to us. This will give us a very competitive advantage on our Amazon, Walmart marketplaces. Purchasing the equipment and raw stock will be around $90K with a retail value of over $700K. Wow. So it will leave a lot of room for us to offer wholesale pricing. We will be the only manufacturer in the Valley, which is a huge market advantage. Who do I approach? A venture capital, angel investor, private investor. I have my business plan projections last 2 years of financials, business assets all ready to go. We're a mother-daughter team that designs and creates custom decorative throw pillows for home and business branding. Well, sounds exciting. Sounds like you have a really great business that you're starting here. My rule of thumb here is, if you can do it with debt, ideally that's best, especially if you have something you think is going to be a great business model because, if it's with the debt, you pay off the debt, then you 100% retain the equity of your business. So I guess it just comes down to how much you think you're going to need to raise. Which I don't know if you've looked into small business loans, you've looked at any sort of bank loans, but I think naturally you've got to look at those things first to see what kind of rate that you can get, what kind of loan they'd be willing to give you. But I think traditional banking is the first place to go because interest rates are very, very low. Now, if that's not an option, you could go to a private investor. I like the idea, even if it's a private investor, make it a debt deal where maybe you pay them a higher interest rate. But at the end of the day, you retain the equity of the company, whereas with, any sort of venture capital, angel investor, they may want some equity in your business. So they're the kind of things you have to weigh out. I'll get you a more intelligent answer on this as well. I haven't had to raise capital for my business, per se. In the beginning it was all with debt, which was great because again, retaining all the ownership of the business, and I was able to finance it relatively cheaply. But I will get back to you with a better answer on this because I feel like, you may have already looked at that and you probably need some more alternative financing per se. So I will get back to you with some other ideas on your question here. But that basically sums it up. That's get through a lot of questions today, which is great. If you have any questions, if you're watching this, go ahead and write a question in there real quick. If not, I'm going to wrap it up. But basically, thank you for, as always enjoyed doing this. I put a little poll in there today, in the Facebook group, if you feel like answering it, just an investment question for you. But with Bitcoin going through the roof, you got Elon Musk buying $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. Is this the place to put your money right now? Or I argue, is it time to put your money into old school stocks? If you're an investor, like things like ExxonMobil, anything where basically, it's a real asset that produces something. And when the economy reopens, we're going to be driving more, we're going to be flying more. So I'm curious to see what your opinions are on that. And if you see my post today, it goes right to my Instagram. I did a poll on my Instagram stories. So don't be shy. Give an answer there. And actually, Robin Turpin writes in here real quickly, thoughts on Bitcoin. Oh boy. I just did something on Fox Business this morning on this. My guess is, look, I don't know long term. Bitcoin could be an alternative currency for sure, right? There's no reason to say that at some point in the future, we're not using Bitcoin to buy anything. But as of today, that's not the case, right? Anything that alludes to Bitcoin being a currency, I would argue it's probably not true today. So if you think about it, and I'll just give you a quick spiel on this. But number one, first off, what does a currency do, right? It's a store value of money. You put money in US dollars in your bank account because the next day when you go into your bank account, it's still going to be worth the same amount of money. You put $100,000 in cash in dollars. Tomorrow it's worth $100,000. A month from now, it's worth $100,000. If you put your money into Bitcoin, the average monthly volatility is like 16% swings on average. So that means on average, if you put your money into Bitcoin over a month, it could be worth $116,000. If you had $100,000 at the end of the month, it could be worth $86,000. It could be, we know in a day, who knows what Bitcoin could be worth. So number one, it's not a store value of money. It fluctuates wildly. So that nicks it, number one, as a currency. Number two, is it a medium of exchange? I can take dollars and I can buy things. I can exchange my dollars for goods and services. Barring the black market, where maybe I can buy like munitions, guns, and things like that, which I think you can with Bitcoin. I'm not sure. I'm not involved in those markets. But can you go to Starbucks and buy a coffee in Bitcoin? Can you really buy anything with Bitcoin? I'm sure there's some esoteric things that you can talk about that, yes, you could buy with Bitcoin, but for the most part, you can't really buy anything with Bitcoin today. It's not really used as a medium of exchange. Anyone who takes Bitcoin, what do you think they do? Do you think they sit on the Bitcoin? No. They instantaneously turn it into dollars. And you're hearing about like MasterCard, PayPal now are processing trades in Bitcoin. Remember, they're not investing in Bitcoin. It's kind of like they had the shovels during the gold rush. They're just expediting the trades for you and making money on the commissions. So they're not actually investing in Bitcoin. So keep that in mind too. And the last thing I would say is Bitcoin a safe haven? Because the other idea, it's like I put my money in Bitcoin because if the system blows up, well, I'll be safe because my money's in Bitcoin. Well, last year when the pandemic hit, the market went down 30, 40%. Did Bitcoin hold its value as a hedge in your portfolio? No. Bitcoin went down 30, 40% as well. So it's not really a safe haven asset as well. So all the things we've heard that Bitcoin is supposed to be used for, it doesn't actually do. So what I argue right now, and I could be wrong about this, don't get me wrong, I could be wrong, is it's probably what I call the greater fool's theory. There's probably a lot of people buying it because I hope some fool's going to buy it at a higher level than they're buying at today. So not to say in the future, maybe it sells off and again, people start using it and there's a viable reason for it. But as an investment advisor right now, I can't give you a rational reason for any of the reasons that have been said. This is why you should own Bitcoin. None of those reasons actually jive in real life. So my best guess is it's probably not the best place to put your money. And I could be wrong short term. Maybe it'll keep going higher here. But I'm willing to bet if we talk 12 months from now, come full circle with my Instagram story, which you should go in and do the poll. I'd like to see what you think about this. If I was going to buy Bitcoin today or ExxonMobil, I'd probably buy ExxonMobil. I think there's a higher likelihood in 12 months that that's going to be higher because the economy is reopening. We're flying again. We're going in our cars again on trips. Fossil fuel use is going to be up big time. And at that point, who knows? Maybe Bitcoin at that point collapses because no one's using it for anything but speculation. So we'll see. But, give me your thoughts on that as well. I'd love to hear what you have to think about that. You can put some comments down here in the comment section as well. But that's it. So thanks again. We went almost like 40 minutes today. That's long for me. If you have any questions, again, just hit me up here in the chat. And then, I do it every month. So if you want to submit questions for next month, I'm happy to answer them. Always appreciate all you guys. Hope you have a great year this year, and I'm happy to help any way I can. Thank you. I am out.